Hello everyone. The purpose of this short video is to introduce you to the course that you're about to begin this week. Um, I want to sort of briefly introduce you to myself and discuss some of the content and some of the themes that you're going to be learning about over the next 5 to 6 weeks. So first, just let me sort of briefly introduce who I am. My name is David Antonini. Um, I have been at Clemson since 2018, so I'll be entering my fourth year as an instructor at Clemson. Um, I am originally from Pennsylvania. I grew up near Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Um, I went to graduate school in Southern Illinois at Southern Illinois University, which is in Carbondale, Illinois. And yeah, and then I moved to Clemson, like I said, in 2018. So that's just a little bit about me and who I am. When I got to Clemson in 2018, I was given this course, Science and Values. The previous instructor that taught it left. And so I have been teaching this course regularly over the past, 3 years. I teach it every fall semester, sometimes in the spring, and then most summers I teach it as well. And so I am constantly sort of thinking about how to teach this course better, what kinds of content to include in terms of getting feedback from students, because it's it's a evolving course because there are a lot of themes and a lot of content that can be included. As you can imagine, just based on the title of the course, it is a very broad theme, science and values, um, especially as it relates to the past, year and a half. Um, I have been increasingly thinking about ways to incorporate um, events and discussions about the pandemic in the course. Um, and so that will become evident as we get into week 3 or week 4 of the course. You will start to see some of the readings and some of the homework questions and quiz questions will deal with things related to the pandemic. But let me just say a bit more broadly about sort of what the impetus behind the title of the course is and sort of why this course is offered. Sort of broadly construed science as a basic, I mean, the word science can describe a lot of different things, but as a basic activity, science is thought to be concerned with, you know, uncovering and observing, facts about the world. And so, in some ways, science is thought of as what we might say, a value free endeavor. And to introduce value considerations into science, there is then a kind of clash between what is supposed to be an objective endeavor and, on the other hand, values which are much more what we might just say subjective. Values typically come from us. We are the ones imposing values onto the world, so to speak, whereas science is simply describing um, the world. Values are a kind of normative or evaluative um, kind of thing, and so there seems to be a fundamental clash. And so the purpose of the course is to think about the ways in which science, as this kind of um, unbiased, value free endeavor, what happens when it comes into contact with all of the different kinds of spheres of our existence that are not value free, such as, I don't know, politics, economics, religion, morality, and the list goes on. How do we try and negotiate the different conflicts that might arise between value free science and value-laden human existence. And so that's kind of the kind of bigger picture surrounding the course. And so as you're going to see as we move throughout the course, you're going to notice the language of a particular position that one might hold about what the relationship should be between science and values. If somebody were to ask you, what should the proper relationship be between science and between values, somebody might say they should be kept separate. One should not, values should not interfere with science. And that might be a reasonable conclusion to reach. And that position about keeping values separate from science is referred to as, quote unquote, the value-free ideal. And so what that means is an ideal is something we should strive for. And so, again, one position you can hold about the relationship between science and values is the value-free ideal. And we should strive then to keep values separate from science. That's one position. I think, as you'll see, that position is a bit too rigid. It may be desirable to try to keep values out of science, but it's not possible. And so we might say it's desirable, but not possible. And so if it's not possible, then maybe it shouldn't be desirable, but that's a different question. But that's kind of in the background as the kind of position against which we can think about what we're doing in this course. Should we keep values out of science? One position, the value-free ideal, holds that we should try to. And so that's kind of the background of the course. That's the really big philosophical picture of the course. In terms of the more specific things we're going to be looking at, you're going to begin the course by thinking about generally just what the relationship is between science and other different kinds of endeavors, like history and the arts. The first reading that you're going to have for this week thinks about what makes science different than the arts and philosophy and literature and things like that. And then the second week we get into this sort of big picture question: what is science? What is the essential nature of science? That's kind of a classic philosophical question. Does the activity of science as a human endeavor have any kind of essential nature, such that if we knew what that nature was, we would be able to identify that thing as science? And so you're going to be looking at various attempts to answer that. You'll be reading Francis Bacon, Karl Popper, Thomas Kuhn, sort of three classic attempts at answering this question: what is science? And so that's kind of the first 2 weeks. And then really the last sort of 3 weeks of the course it's an interest that I have developed as I've taught this course, and something I emphasize when I teach the course. And it's thinking about the ethics of scientific communication. What responsibilities do scientists have when they communicate with the public? Is it appropriate for certain values to influence the way that scientists communicate with the public, the way that they inform the public about certain matters? And how do they balance their responsibility as scientists to be factual and neutral, where with their responsibility as moral agents who have a big responsibility to warn the public about certain dangers? And that can obviously lead to distrust if the public thinks that the scientist is not remaining neutral. And so you'll see that the questions, and you obviously are aware of this with the pandemic and things like that, when scientists seem as though they're crossing this line into telling you what to do and how to behave and things like that, distrust arises. And so we're going to thinking about sort of the last 3 weeks of the course deal with this question of how can scientists communicate responsibly with the public. And obviously, again, in the context of the pandemic, that is just in your face all the time in terms of these public figures like the household name Dr. Fauci that you all have become familiar with over the past year and a half. So anyways, that's really all I wanted to do in this video, is just to sort of give you the background and the outline for what this course is. It's obviously a short summer course. There will be a lot of reading for certain weeks. A lot is packed in. I treat this as a course that you are getting 3 credits for. So yes, there is a decent amount of work for the course, but you are getting the same amount of credit as you would for a 15-week course. So given that, there is not less work necessarily, because a lot is packed in. And I think you guys, by this point, as far as I know, none of you are freshmen taking this. So you're all aware of the kind of what the deal is when you take one of these expedited summer courses. And so just be aware of that up front. There will be a homework assignment, a quiz, and a discussion post every week, and then a final paper. And you'll see that in the syllabus. I'm not going to spend time going through the syllabus. You can go through that on your own. You can look at that on your own. But I did want to just briefly remind you about kind of what you're signing up for here, and an awareness that there is a lot of required reading and a lot of required work, and especially because it's asynchronous, that responsibility, a lot of it just falls on you to keep up with the work. Do not fall behind. That said, there are lecture videos like the one you're watching that I have created, and you'll see the links to those on the syllabus. So I've tried to give you as many resources as you can to succeed in the course. And my personal opinion is that if you keep up with the readings and you keep up with the assignments and you don't fall behind, it is not difficult to do well in this class. I do not intend this to be an especially difficult class. You just need to keep up with the work, and you should do fine. I'm available through email. I'm available for a Zoom meeting if that's something that you want. Typically in the summer, students don't really reach out to me for that kind of thing, but if you wanted to have a Zoom meeting, we could do that. But I think you have enough resources on Canvas in terms of the lecture videos on the syllabus and the lecture notes that you should do fine in the class. So that's really the purpose of this video. Again, I just want to welcome you to the class. Please do not hesitate to reach out to me at any point in the class for anything that you need. And again, this is just one final reminder. I have this bolded on the syllabus, but please, and especially for a summer course like this, it's much easier for me to grant you extensions and to think about cutting you some slack or cutting you some breaks if you reach out to me and you try to anticipate problems you're going to have in terms of meeting deadlines. If you're thinking prospectively, which is to say thinking about the future ahead of time, I'm much more likely to work with you. So please communicate with me. It's important in a regular class during a regular semester, but it's also important especially in a summer course. So that's all I have, and welcome to the class.